What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Car Rant. Today we're continuing where we left off here with the gold S13, but before we get started, a quick caveat. We did not put the engine into this car yet. No, that's actually going to be the next episode. Today, well, short version, we got to take a subframe out. Now let me show you why.
Now, as you can see here, this is our stock S13 subframe with all of the parts in their stock location. However, in order to put an RB into this car, we are going to swap out our subframe from a GTR.
You see, as far as putting an RB into an S13 goes, there are pretty much two main ways to do this. But obviously people are creative and they have more than one option to anything in life when it comes to cars. So your first option is what we're going with, and that's getting an R32 subframe to throw into our S chassis. Your second option, however, is, well, a little bit simpler and maybe even kinder on your wallet if you didn't get a sweet deal like we did. The other option is what other people have done in the past, including Ian with his beam swap, and that's going with adapter mounts. So basically they'll mount to your stock subframe and allow you to adapt your subframe mounting points for the normal engine to a different engine. Say, in Ian's case, he has a beams in his S13. It's not going to fit a KA24 mount system, so we went ahead and got beams adapter mounts because, well, the car's a Nissan and his engine's a Toyota. They never were meant to be together, and yet here we are in the mod community making it so.
Okay, you good? So, Ian, how much do you not like doing drive shaft jobs?
Not very much, but when you're putting in one piece, I'm okay with it.
To kick today's episode off, we have to get the drive shaft out of the car. The drive shaft has been laying on the ground and is now getting in the way of us moving the car in and out of the garage so we can work on the front end. Now that the drive shaft is fully out of the car, we're going to begin the process to start taking this subframe out. A couple things you got to keep in mind if you're doing this at home. First and foremost is all the lines that are on the subframe itself. A lot of stuff is just kind of tucked into it. If you're taking yours out and not going the mount route, well, you're going to have to keep in mind where those are. Possibly relocate them temporarily until you get your subframe out, just so you don't knock the lines and things like that.
Have you done this once already? If you have power tools, it helps. At least an impact. You'll have to take off your tension rods, your little control arms, your tie rod ends, or take off your brackets that hold, or your clamps that hold your steering rack in. And then it's 4 bolts, and depending on how rusted on those are, you might want to be careful. They'll usually break off with some decent prying.
And decent prying we did give. While Ian was under the car, I began the process of taking out the fender liners so we could then take off the front bumper at a later date. To take out the subframe, we started by removing the arms and anything attached to the subframe itself. Be very careful when doing this. These are all bolts and materials you definitely don't want to strip or damage, as some of these are kind of hard to come by. In our case, we have to be even more cautious as most of our suspension parts are from Voodoo 13. And there she goes. Subframe is halfway out of the car. We just got to get the bolts off of this side. We'll take him out and get this R32 frame put in. And don't forget, there's a couple of things that hold the power steering lines onto the car, or rather onto that subframe. Just make sure you crack those loose. They're right there. There it is. So, what's the difference, as you say, between the S13 and the RB subframe? Well, the only major difference that we can see is quite literally the engine mount points. They're offset by just enough. See how that's set more forward? That's definitely set back. That's the S13, that's the RB. That's insane how like similar they are. But he's definitely like pushed way forward compared to the other one. Like that back swept, that's definitely front swept. Man, it's a good thing I got this from the guy, huh? Subframe is in. We were told that because he had done some modifications with where the steering rack lines up, that we might have to change some things there, but it actually worked on its own. That end piece there, the steering column, literally telescoped for us, so we don't have to worry about trying to pull that out or anything, so we can bolt everything straight in. At this stage in the game, it is recommended that you change out steering rack bushings, but we're just gonna send it because it's late. We want to get this done so that we can get started on pulling this bumper. and getting this thing put back into the garage so we can swap this engine on Saturday. All right, so we went ahead and we've already got the bolts out of this part of the fender on both sides. However, there are 2 bolts that are fighting with us right now. And as a result, we're gonna come back tomorrow to knock that out, just to get the bumper off, to get the condenser out, and to prep the front end for an intercooler, for laying in the intercooler piping. As is, we've already taken the air box out of our NA car. That way now we can actually route the pipe the way it's supposed to go. So yeah, lots of progress. Really happy with where we're at on this. And honestly, there's not a lot left. There's not a lot left before we put the RB in the car. Once we get our friend Yilmar in here to help us massage out that part of the firewall, because he's done this before, yeah, that engine's going in. And once it's wired and plumbed and we know it works, it's time to rip some fat Bernies. I will definitely say that it's better to do the subframe anyway, just because for the sake of your own peace of mind, it's fresh stuff. You've retorqued and tightened all the bolts the way you need to, the way you're supposed to. There's no question of something being loose or not. For me, peace of mind is worth a whole lot more than this car. I'm just saying, because I wouldn't want to be in this car and then something break or a bolt come loose and now you're in serious trouble. Because I've had that happen before. But with that said, we're actually going to end the video here. We'll catch you guys up once we figure out how to get these bolts out of the bumper. And yeah, if you thought this was a good and very educational video, you should see when we actually put the suspension on this car the first time, because that was a story in of itself. We did it in 110 degree heat and somehow it still came out right.